A lot of veterans think getting a CPAP machine means an automatic 50% rating for sleep apnea. And right now, under the current rules, that's mostly true. But VA proposed changes to the sleep apnea rating system back in 2022. And if those changes go through, having a CPAP prescription might not be enough anymore. The VA is looking at shifting the focus to how well your treatment works, whether your symptoms are actually controlled, and whether sleep apnea has caused serious complications. This is the third video in our 2026 VASRD Survival Kit series, and today we're breaking down what's changing, what's staying the same, what you need in your evidence file, and how filing before the new rules take effect could protect your rating permanently. Here's what we're covering today. First, I'll explain the current sleep apnea rating criteria so you understand what's in place right now. Then I'll walk through the proposed changes VA put out in 2022 and what they mean in plain English. We'll talk about treatment response, functional impairment, and a phrase you're going to hear more often: end organ damage. I'll show you the most common evidence gaps I see in sleep apnea claims and what veterans can do right now to strengthen their files before any new rules go live. And I'll introduce you to a critical concept called grandfathering, how filing an intent to file before the new rules take effect could lock in the current, more favorable rating criteria for your claim permanently. We'll cover that in detail in the next video in this series, but you need to understand the basics today. I'm not here to scare you or sell you something. I'm here to help you understand what VA is proposing and how to prepare. I've worked with hundreds of veterans on sleep apnea claims, and I've seen strong claims get approved and weak claims get denied, even when the condition is real. The difference is almost always in the evidence file. So let's break this down step by step. Section 1, the current sleep apnea rating system. Right now, sleep apnea is rated under 38 CFR, section 4.97, diagnostic code 6847. The current rating schedule has 4 levels. 0% is for asymptomatic sleep apnea. That means you have a documented sleep disorder, but you're not showing symptoms that require treatment. 30% is for persistent daytime hypersomnolence. That's VA's term for chronic daytime sleepiness that doesn't go away. 50% is for required use of a breathing assistance device during sleep. That's your CPAP machine, BiPAP, or any similar device. If a doctor prescribes it and you're required to use it, you qualify for 50% under the current rule. 100% is for chronic respiratory failure with carbon dioxide retention, cor pulmonale, or a tracheostomy. This is the most severe level, and it's rare. For most veterans, the 50% rating is the target. And under the current system, if you can prove service connection and show that a doctor prescribed a CPAP, you're usually going to get that 50%. That's the rule right now. But VA has proposed changing it, and understanding the timeline matters because of something called grandfathering protection. Section 2, what VA proposed in 2022. In 2022, VA proposed updates to the entire respiratory rating schedule, including sleep apnea. The proposal hasn't been finalized yet, but it shows where VA is headed, and the direction is clear. VA wants to focus more on treatment response and actual impairment, not just whether you have a CPAP. Here's what that means. Under the proposed system, VA would look at whether your treatment is actually working. Are your symptoms controlled with the CPAP, or are you still dealing with daytime fatigue, brain fog, headaches, and poor sleep quality even with treatment? If the CPAP is working and your symptoms are under control, your rating might be lower than 50%. If the CPAP isn't working or you can't tolerate it, your rating could stay at 50% or go higher, depending on the severity of your remaining symptoms. VA is also looking at something called end organ damage. That's medical language for serious complications caused by untreated or poorly controlled sleep apnea. We're talking about heart problems, high blood pressure that won't respond to medication, stroke risk, metabolic issues, and other conditions that develop because your body isn't getting enough oxygen at night. If sleep apnea has caused documented complications like that, VA may rate it higher. The key shift here is this: VA is moving away from the idea that a CPAP prescription alone proves impairment. They want to see whether the treatment is actually helping and whether your condition is causing real functional problems or medical complications. Now, here's the critical part. If you file your claim or your intent to file before the new rules take effect, you may be grandfathered under the old, more favorable criteria. That means even if the new rules say a CPAP isn't enough, your claim could still be evaluated under the current system where a CPAP prescription qualifies for 50%. We'll cover exactly how that works in the next video in this series, but the takeaway is this: timing matters. Section 3: what end organ damage means in plain English. Let's talk about end organ damage because that phrase is going to confuse a lot of veterans. It sounds complicated, but it's not. End organ damage just means that sleep apnea has caused harm to another part of your body: your heart, your brain, your kidneys, your blood vessels. These are all organs that can be damaged when you stop breathing repeatedly during sleep and your oxygen levels drop. Here are some examples. If you have high blood pressure that started after your sleep apnea developed, and it's hard to control even with medication, that could be end organ damage. If you've had a stroke or a heart attack and your doctor says untreated sleep apnea was a contributing factor, that's end organ damage. If you've developed metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, or worsening diabetes tied to poor sleep and low oxygen, that could qualify. If you have chronic fatigue so severe that it's affecting your ability to work or function, and it's documented as being caused by sleep apnea, that's functional impairment that could support a higher rating. The important thing to understand is this: you need medical evidence connecting the complication to your sleep apnea. It's not enough to say you have high blood pressure and sleep apnea. You need a doctor to write an opinion or statement saying the sleep apnea caused or worsened the high blood pressure. That's the nexus. Without that connection in writing, VA is not going to assume the two are related. Section 4: the most common evidence gaps in sleep apnea claims, 915-1145. Now let's talk about what's missing in most sleep apnea claims. These are the gaps that cause denials or lower ratings, and if the proposed rules go through, these gaps are going to matter even more. First gap: no nexus. A lot of veterans file for sleep apnea without a medical opinion connecting it to service. You need a doctor to say it's at least as likely as not that your sleep apnea is related to your military service. That could be direct service connection, a secondary connection to another service connected condition like PTSD or a neck injury, or aggravation of a condition that existed before service. Without that nexus opinion, the claim is going to get denied. Second gap: no documented CPAP prescription or compliance. If you were prescribed a CPAP but you're not using it, VA is going to question whether you actually need it. If you are using it, make sure your treatment records show that. CPAP machines track usage. Your doctor should have that data. If your compliance is low, you need to explain why. Is the mask uncomfortable? Are you claustrophobic? Do you have a deviated septum that makes it hard to breathe through your nose? Document the reason. Third gap: no evidence showing incomplete relief. If the CPAP is helping and your symptoms are under control, that's good for your health. But it might lower your rating under the new system if you're still tired, still dealing with brain fog, still waking up with headaches, still struggling to stay awake during the day, even with the CPAP that needs to be documented. Your doctor needs to note that in your treatment records. You need to describe those ongoing symptoms at your C&P exam. Don't assume VA will figure it out. Fourth gap: no explanation for CPAP intolerance. If you can't tolerate the CPAP, you need medical documentation explaining why. Did you try multiple masks? Did you work with a sleep specialist to adjust the settings? Did you develop skin irritation, sinus problems, or anxiety from wearing it? All of that needs to be in your records. Fifth gap: no functional impact evidence. How does sleep apnea affect your daily life? Can you stay awake at work? Can you drive safely? Can you focus on tasks? Can you maintain relationships? Functional impact is what separates a strong claim from a weak one. You need to describe this in detail, and ideally, you need lay statements from people who see the impact: your spouse, coworkers, or friends. Sixth gap: no medical opinion connecting complications to sleep apnea. If you have high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, or cognitive issues, and you believe sleep apnea caused or worsened them, you need a doctor to say that in writing. That's a secondary service connection claim, and it requires a nexus opinion just like the primary claim. Section 5: what veterans should do now. Here's what you can do right now to prepare. whether you're filing a new claim, seeking an increase, or just protecting your current rating. First, get a current sleep study if you don't have one, or if your last one is more than a few years old. Sleep apnea can get worse over time, and an updated study shows current severity. Second, make sure your CPAP prescription and compliance data are in your VA medical records. If you're using the CPAP, that data should be tracked. If you're not using it, document why. Third, if the CPAP isn't controlling your symptoms, tell your doctor. Don't just suffer in silence. Make sure your ongoing fatigue, brain fog, headaches, and sleep disruption are documented in your treatment notes. If your doctor isn't writing it down, ask them to. Fourth, if you can't tolerate the CPAP, work with your doctor to document the reasons and try alternative treatments. VA needs to see that you made a good faith effort. Fifth, describe your functional impact in detail. Write it down. How does sleep apnea affect your work, your relationships, your safety, your daily activities? Be specific. Use examples. If your spouse or a close friend can write a lay statement describing what they've observed, that's powerful evidence. Sixth, if you believe sleep apnea has caused or worsened another condition, ask your doctor for a medical opinion. Don't assume VA will connect the dots. You need that nexus opinion in writing. Seventh, if you're not sure what evidence you have or what's missing, get your C file and review it. Look at your service treatment records, your VA medical records, your C&P exam reports, your rating decision. Identify the gaps before you file. And eighth, and this is critical, if you're planning to file a sleep apnea claim and the new rules haven't taken effect yet, consider filing an intent to file now. An intent to file locks in your effective date and may protect you under the current rating criteria through something called grandfathering. We're covering that in detail in the next video in this series, but the short version is this. Filing before the rule change could mean the difference between being evaluated under the old system or the new one. And for sleep apnea, that could mean the difference between a 50% rating and something lower. Let's recap. The current sleep apnea rating system gives 50% for required use of a CPAP. That rule is still in effect right now, but VA proposed changes in 2022 that would shift the focus to treatment response, functional impairment, and end organ damage. If those changes go through, a CPAP prescription alone might not be enough. You'll need evidence showing whether the treatment works, whether symptoms remain, whether you can tolerate the device, and whether sleep apnea has caused serious complications. The most common evidence gaps are no nexus, no documented CPAP use, no proof of incomplete relief, no explanation for intolerance, no functional impact evidence, and no medical opinion connecting complications to sleep apnea. And here's the part you can't ignore. If you file before the new rules take effect, you may be protected under the old criteria through grandfathering. That's what we're covering in the next video. Here's your challenge. In the next 48 hours, pull your most recent sleep study, your CPAP compliance report if you have one, and your last few treatment notes from your primary care doctor or sleep specialist. Read through them and ask yourself, do these records show the full picture of how sleep apnea affects me? If the answer is no, schedule an appointment and start filling in the gaps. And if you're planning to file a sleep apnea claim, watch the next video in this series to understand how an intent to file could protect your rating from future rule changes. The next video in the 2026 VASRD Survival Kit series covers Grandfathering 101, how an intent to file protects your rating from future law changes. If you're planning to file a sleep apnea claim or any other claim before the new VASRD rules take effect, that video will show you exactly how to lock in the current, more favorable criteria. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. If you need help understanding a VA decision letter right now, head over to vetearanclaimsmadeeasy.com to resources and use the free VA letter translator. It breaks down VA language into plain English so you know exactly what the letter is saying and what to do next. If you're preparing a sleep apnea claim, an increase, or a secondary claim, and you want help identifying evidence gaps, before you file, consider the VA Claim Readiness Review. It's a one-time flat fee service that walks through your evidence, shows you what's strong, what's missing, and what to fix before you submit. No pressure, no contingency fees, just clarity before you file. And if you want a follow-up video on exactly what evidence to gather for a sleep apnea claim, comment CPAP below, and I'll make that next. If this video helped you understand the proposed changes and why timing matters, hit the subscribe button. I put out clear, honest VA claim guidance every week for veterans who want to file with confidence, not confusion. My goal is never to mislead, only to empower you with accurate, honest, and actionable information.